All right, seventh grade here talking about the Iditarod Trail. And for those of you who are familiar with dog racing, this should not be a surprise. To those of you who are not familiar with dog racing, don't blame you, it's not really something we have in Maryland. You may remember, however, from last year when we talked about Gary Paulson's Woods song, we talked about how he raised dogs for the Iditarod race. And the Iditarod is a famous race that is run in Alaska every year. The Iditarod actually is based on real events, which you read about in this story, and has had a movie based on these events. In Nome, Alaska, there was an outbreak of diphtheria, which is a disease that largely comes about due to unclean drinking water. But there was a lot of worry about what would happen because there were groups that were at risk for this disease, and this is fitting for the time we're in. They were largely the Native American Inuits, who might be referred to as Eskimos in a less politically correct text. To give you context, I'm saying that there. The Inuit is the correct term, Eskimo is incorrect. And children, because they hadn't developed their immune systems. This was actually a big problem with the settlement of North America by European settlers, was that Native Americans did not have resistance to European diseases. Their immune systems had not been exposed to them, and as such, they hadn't developed the proper antibodies to protect against this. That's why in the world today, there are still a handful of uncontacted tribes of native people who have not been contacted and have been left in isolation because they have no antibodies for modern diseases, and we would not want to wipe them out with an unexpected plague. Now, the issue wasn't that there wasn't a vaccine for diphtheria. There was. However, the issue is that the vaccine had to be kept liquid in extraordinarily cold temperatures in the middle of an Alaskan winter. The weather was such that you couldn't fly a plane there. There was no rail line, and there were no roads. So the solution they had was they were going to do relays via dog sled teams to take it there, and the drivers would have to keep the packages of vaccines warm, otherwise they would freeze and be worthless. And this was a huge undertaking. You had dog sled runners from almost all over Alaska coming to help out. It was an extreme example of people coming together to help each other out. And they managed to deliver this package with the help of extraordinarily dedicated dog sled teams. Balto, one of the dogs mentioned, actually had a movie made out of him. They actually made 3 movies about Balto, but we're going to ignore the other 2. Now, they made some changes. They made Balto half wolf and an outcast among dogs to have this sort of cutesy Disney storyline with it. But these dogs made the effort, and they actually saved the whole expedition several times by realizing things like, hey, this is freezing water, the ice is broken off here. They actually took their dog sleds over a frozen stretch of ocean, as part of a shortcut there. And the Iditarod and the vaccines were delivered successfully. Nome was saved from the plague outbreak. Then, every year since, there is the Iditarod Trail race run. Every year, people would follow the same route. They take their dog sled teams, and they go following the same route as the vaccination of Nome. Balto and Togo, these dogs, are actually so famous that one of them, Balto, has a bronze statue in Central Park. So, leaving you with those thoughts there, go ahead. What are your thoughts on the reenacting of a dog sled race? What do you think about dog sled racing in general? Go ahead, leave your thoughts in the descriptions below, and I will see you in the next one, 7th grade.